Do what you love and delegate the rest. Your ceiling is built out of the 2 to 3 things you would fight to keep. Founders delegate what they hate and they hold on to what they love. It's loving it and staying the best at it. So you don't stop caring. You change the altitude you care at. You're trapped by the work you love. Some of the most dangerous advice in business sounds like a gift. Do what you love and delegate the rest. You've heard it 100 times, and if you're good at running a company, you've already done it. You handed off the parts of the job that drained you, and you kept the parts that you're best at. And it felt like freedom for a while. But here you are still stuck in your business. Well, the work that you kept could be the exact thing keeping you stuck. Not the work you hate, but the work you love. I'm Dori Etter, and this is Below the Waterline, the leadership work no one else talks about. Today, I want to show you why the tasks you're proudest of, the ones you'd never think to give away, are so often your ceiling. Why you can delegate everything you hate and still end up at the center of everything, and what to do about the one kind of work you've never once considered letting go. So let's get into it. I want you to build a list in your head right now while I'm talking. Everything you've successfully handed off in, say, the last 2 years. The bookkeeping, the scheduling, the hiring paperwork, the vendor calls, all the parts of operations that you used to just white knuckle your way through that you finally handed off to someone else. Maybe it was a whole function. Maybe you hired a person specifically so you'd stop doing something that you hated. Now, that is a real list, and it's a good one. It's proof of something important. It's proof that you can delegate. You're not one of those founders who can't let go of anything. You've let go of plenty. So I want you to keep that list in mind. But now let's look at what's not on it. Because what's not on that list is the work that actually matters. So let me illustrate a pattern I see so often. I'm going to talk about a founder. Let's just say he's doing around 4 million. That's a common threshold that I see. A company working to break into that $5 million number. And he has built the company himself. This is a smart, disciplined, genuinely good at the work founder who over the last few years has indeed offloaded almost all the stuff that he really didn't like doing, the stuff that wore him down. And his calendar looks pretty good these days. On paper, he has delegated beautifully. And he's still in every room that matters. And obviously, not the admin rooms. He's gotten out of those, but he's still in the important ones, the ones that he should be in. He does the final review before anything ships to a client. He manages the relationships that keeps the lights on. He still does that one part of the work he's better at than anyone he's ever hired. See, none of that ever made it onto a delegation list. It didn't even occur to him to put it on there. You probably have some things that haven't occurred to you to delegate either. It sounds obvious. That's the part that makes him the founder. That's the part only he can do. It's the thing that clients are paying for. There's a thought, like I could teach someone some process stuff, but there's a magic here that I can't teach. And he might not be wrong. It might even be true that he's the best at it in the building. And that's what makes this so hard to see. Here's what's actually happening underneath. He has a standard, and because he's never really considered letting those items go, that standard exists only in his head. He may have an SOP documented somewhere, but that's likely mechanics. It's not the secret sauce that makes what he's doing truly great. He built a company that ensures he holds the most important work. And then he wonders why he can't step back. Maybe once a while ago, He handed one of his most important tasks to his most capable person, a really good hire, someone he trusted. But while he was transitioning it, he noticed it just wasn't up to his standard. He was just faster. It was easier for him to do it himself than to try to get someone to really understand what made his standard better. His evaluation of the task reinforced what he already knew. No one could do it like he could. That's more than a delegation failure. It's a hold below the waterline that has him truly unable to release this. So he's built the entire organization around him keeping the task. Once he was telling this story at his Vistage group, or maybe it was an EO meeting, but someone told him it's not about how you delegated, it's about who you delegated to. You just need to hire someone senior enough to take this big stuff off your plate. How many of you have heard that? So now he's out there looking for a unicorn, someone expensive enough, credentialed enough, who can finally take this work that he loves, that he's the greatest at. Frankly, I used to be that unicorn, but it was never about seniority. You can hire the most senior person in the world, and if the design of the company still says the founder holds the crown jewel work, it will never be delegated. So here's the truth. Every single task on your delegation list is something you are glad to lose. That's why you delegated it. It was easy and it cost you nothing to let it go. Your ceiling isn't built out of those tasks. Your ceiling is built out of the 2 to 3 things you would fight to keep, the things you would never put on your delegation list. It's the work you love and that you're sure you're the best at. I call this the love great trap. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. See, founders delegate what they hate and they hold on to what they love. I mean, it's built right into the EOS rollout plan. The whole idea seems reasonable, but what you're doing is actually building a really sophisticated ceiling for your business. So half of this is invisible. The tasks you hate are easy to give away. Nobody's identity is wrapped up in doing the bookkeeping. So you hand it off, you feel the relief, you call it delegation, and you're done. But the invisible part, the task that you love, they feel like the point of the whole thing. They're usually the task that you're best at in the entire building. So handing one off doesn't feel like delegating. It feels like lowering the bar. It feels like letting quality slip. Every instinct in you says, protect this one. This one is mine. In the beginning, what you're great at is the business. The thing is, as your company grows, you have to use a different metric to determine what to keep. Continuing to hold what you love and what you're best at just ensures that you have to stay operating inside your business, even when the business needs you above it. I found that the work that you love shows up in one of 3 shapes. So listen for yours. The first is what I call Practitioner Excellence. This is a founder who's simply the best practitioner in the building. I'm just better at the actual work than anyone else. Clients ask for you by name, and as long as you're still the best deliverer, your team never has to become great. They learn to wait for you instead. And this is so common in the founders I work with. Now, the second way this shows up is what I call relational mastery. Sounds like they trust me, specifically me. They would want me, not someone else. So you hold the relationships that matter the most. The key clients, the big partners, the top hires. Every one of those run through you, which means that every one of those is a single point failure that you can't transfer and you can't scale. Now, the third is what I call the strategic doer. I see that the idea behind the strategic doer is that I, as the founder, can see that angle faster than anyone else in the room. The sharpest strategic voice in every meeting And as long as you keep being the best thinker in the conversation, your leadership team stays an audience. They never build the muscle of leadership because they don't have to. You've got it covered. So there's different shapes of the same trap. And let me be clear, this trap is costing you. It's costing your time and effort to do the task. It's costing you in the limits it puts on your company's growth. And it's costing you actual dollars as you pay team members, but never give them what they need to deliver their full value. It's a cost that compounds every single day that you don't let things go. And here's the key. It's not the task itself that has you trapped. It's loving it and staying the best at it. That's why this is below the waterline. If it were just a workload problem, you'd have solved it already. You're good at solving workload problems. This just isn't one. This is identity. The work you love is entangled up with who you are, and letting it go feels like becoming less yourself. That's not a scheduling issue. You can't hire your way out of it. And there's a quiet version of this that's even harder to catch. A founder will tell me with total confidence, no, that one's genuinely mine. That's my seat. And sometimes it is. But a lot of the time, it's mine really means it's always been mine. And I never stop to check whether it still should be. So those are two different sentences. It's mine because it's always been mine. And it's mine because no one else is built to hold it yet. Only the second one is a real answer. The first one is just a habit wearing the costume of a decision. So what do? First, let's be clear. I am not telling you to stop loving your work. I would never tell you that. My company is named Inspired Income because I believe you are meant to love what you do. That caring deeply is the whole point, not something to apologize for. So loving the work isn't the root. The love is the good part. The problem is staying the only person who does it long after the business needs you somewhere else. That love really translates into care. Care is bringing yourself fully into what you do, into the people, into the product, into the work itself. Your job as a founder is to expand that care as your company grows. It's not about the task level caring anymore. It's a level above it. It's about caring enough to let that task happen without you. So you don't stop caring. You change the altitude you care at. I call this elevate by design, and it sets you free. You move from doing the work to designing the thing that does the work. You take all that care, all that standard, all that only I can do this right, and you point it at building the structure, the training, the standard, the system, so that someone else can get it right too. You care just as much, you care just one level up. Now you may be thinking, this sounds great, but how do I do it? What does this actually look like in practice? So let's use the example of the founder who won't let go of a final client review. The trapped version of caring is he does every review himself forever because his eye is the best eye. The elevated version of caring is he sits down and asks a different question. He asks, what is it exactly that my eye catches that theirs doesn't yet? And he finds out it's usually 3 or 4 specific things, maybe a tone check, a scope check, a technical thing that he always looks for but has never been documented. So instead of doing the review, he builds the review. He turns his instinct into a checklist, then into a training, and then into a standard his team can see so they can meet it. He spends his care designing the thing that makes his judgment repeatable without him in the chair. And that's growth. He didn't lower the bar. He built the bar into the wall so it holds without his hands on it. He still cares about the review. He just stopped being the only place the review can happen. And notice what it requires. It requires him to believe below the waterline that his value isn't in being the best reviewer. And it requires him to build above the waterline the actual structure that catches the work well. Neither one alone gets the job done. So the question is never, can you do this? Of course you can. You're the best in the building. The question is always, is this what the business needs from me right now? Here's where it usually goes wrong. You can't just hand off your best work into thin air. If you drop the crown jewel task on someone with no structure to catch it, your quality will tank, you will get burned, you'll end up taking it right back, and you'll be more convinced than ever that only you can do it. So letting go of the work you love is the below the waterline half. It's about your identity, your grip, your sense of what makes you valuable. But it only holds if the above the waterline half is there to match it. The structure built to receive the work, somewhere real for it to land. So both halves have to move together. The belief has to shift. The structure has to exist at the same time. That's why it holds. When you try one without the other, it's never going to stick. That above the waterline half, the actual architecture that catches the work when you finally let go of it, that's where I'll be going in the next episode. Now, before I give you the application for this week, I want to acknowledge that this is challenging work. It's not common to look at something you love and say, it's costing me something. But that uncommon action is what will produce uncommon results for you and your business. So here's what to do now. I want you to think about one or two things you would never give up, the work you'd fight to keep. You already know what they are. It's the stuff that you've been feeling a little defensive about since you've been listening to this episode. Just hold one of them in mind and ask yourself these two questions. Question one, imagine that you had to hand it off tomorrow. Not like you want to hand it off, but you had to hand it off. Is there anywhere for it to land? Is there structure, a person, or a system built well enough that someone could take this from you and carry it? Or is the real answer that there's nowhere for it to go because you've never built the place for it to live outside of your own hands? That is an above the waterline question. It's about whether the structure exists. Now, the second question, as you imagine actually letting it go, is what comes up for you internally? Do you have something in you that says, I could never give this up? I don't want you to argue with it. I don't want you to try to fix anything. Just get curious about it. What are you afraid happens if you let this go? What happens to the work? What happens to the company? What happens to you if this is no longer yours? Whatever surfaces, that is the below the waterline half. That's the part that was never about the task, but does keep you holding it. Now, if there's no place for this task to land, that's an above the waterline problem. It's a structure problem, and you can put that structure in place. If you just can't imagine letting it go, even if the structure were there, that's the deeper work. And it's the reason structure alone was never going to be enough. So above the waterline and below the waterline, both of them have to move together. Now, if you're ready to go deeper, I built a tool to help you find your love great traps. It's an app that will walk you through the work you're holding, and it shows you which of the tasks you love are actually arc aligned, genuinely still yours, and which ones have quietly become your ceiling. It takes about 15 minutes, and it'll give you real insights into where to go to work to shift your experience of being trapped in your business. The link is in the description, and if you want to talk about what you find, there's a way to book a conversation with me on the other side. Because you were never trapped by the work you hate. You got rid of that a long time ago. You're trapped by the work you love. And the day you can finally hand off the thing you're best at, not because you stopped caring, but because you built somewhere real for it to land. That's the day the company stops needing you to be great and starts being great on its own. I'm Dori Etter. This is Below the Waterline, and I'll see you next time.